Hey, everybody. Welcome to a deep dive that I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's all about signaling for cranes.
Okay.
And we're going to be referencing OSHA 1926.1419.
Sounds good.
And we have with us an expert to kind of guide us through this.
Of course.
And this is brought to you by Safety One Source.
Wonderful.
Big thanks to them for helping us put this together.
Yes, thank you.
So let's just jump right into it.
Sure.
When does OSHA say that you need a designated signal person?
So OSHA 1926.1419A
Okay.
spells out 3 specific situations where you need to have a signal person.
Okay.
The first one is if the operator can't see the load's movement or the area where it needs to be placed.
Okay.
So that would be like if you're lifting materials in a congested construction site
Oh, yeah.
and you have limited visibility,
Absolutely.
the signal person will be your eyes on the ground,
Oh, that's a good point.
guiding you safely.
Yeah.
The second situation is when the crane itself is moving and the operator's view is obstructed.
Okay.
So even if the load is visible, if the crane's path is blocked, you still need that extra set of eyes
Right.
guiding the way.
So like swinging it around a building.
Yeah, like swinging a crane around a building, you need someone to make sure you don't clip the corner or hit anything
That makes a lot of sense.
in your blind spot.
Yeah.
And then the third one is for site-specific safety concerns.
Okay.
It could be that the operator feels uncomfortable
Right.
proceeding without a signal person due to the complexity of the lift.
Yeah.
Or maybe the person handling the load sees a potential hazard
Okay.
that the operator might miss from their elevated position.
Okay. So this one's a little bit more
Flexible.
flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the 3 situations.
So we talked about when you need a signal person, but what about the signals themselves?
Okay. So OSHA 1926.1419
Okay.
allows for several different types of signals.
Okay.
You have your traditional hand signals,
Right.
but you can also use voice commands.
Uh-huh. Audible signals like horns or whistles.
Okay.
And something called new signals.
New signals.
Yeah.
What are those? I've never heard of that.
That's OSHA's way of acknowledging that technology is always evolving.
I see.
So new signals can include things like video feeds from the load's perspective,
Uh-huh.
giving the operator a direct view of what's happening
Oh, wow.
down below, or even specialized radio communication with coded signals for specific actions.
So they're thinking ahead.
Yeah, it's really forward thinking.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
But I would imagine they don't just let you do whatever you want.
No,
There's got to be some guidelines.
Yeah, 1926.1419 outlines the specific criteria for these new signals.
Okay.
They have to be at least as effective as the traditional methods
Okay.
or meet nationally recognized consensus standards
Right.
for safety and communication.
Gotcha.
So it's all about making sure that innovation doesn't compromise safety.
That makes sense. I like
Yeah.
that. So let's get back to some of the more traditional ones. Oh, hand signals.
Yes.
Are those still a thing, or are we?
They are. Yeah, hand signals are definitely still relevant.
Okay.
You know, think about it. What happens if there's a sudden communication breakdown?
Right.
Or you're working in an environment where those high-tech solutions just aren't practical.
Right.
You need a reliable backup.
Yeah.
OSHA 1926.1419C specifically calls out the standard method of hand signals
Okay.
and emphasizes how important it is for everyone involved to know this shared language.
So like a common
Language,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But OSHA also recognizes that there are times when those standard signals just might not cut it.
Okay.
Maybe there's a unique situation on a particular job site.
Sure.
Or the standard signals just don't cover a specific action
Right.
that needs to be communicated.
Okay.
So in those situations...
And you can't just make it up as you go, I'm
You
assuming.
can't just make it up as you go.
Oh, yeah.
1926.1419, okay, allows for what they call non-standard hand signals.
Okay.
But there's a big caveat.
Okay.
Everyone involved, the signal person, the operator, and the lift director,
Okay.
if there is one, must agree on those non-standard signals
Okay.
before the operation even begins.
Oh, so they got to have a little meeting beforehand
Yes.
and agree.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
No room for misinterpretation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. You know, whether you're using the standard ones or something special,
Right.
everyone's got to be on the same page.
Yes. You have to have that shared understanding to avoid any confusion or potentially dangerous mistakes.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of potential issues, let's talk about the challenges that different site conditions can present.
Like a loud construction site. And
Exact-
hard to hear.
Yes.
Or like fog.
fog.
That would be really hard for signal.
Yeah. Or even working at a kite,
Yeah.
where hand signals might be hard to see.
That's a good point.
OSHA addresses this in 1926.1419.
Okay.
which states that the chosen signaling method and the way it's transmitted needs to be suitable for the specific conditions of that site.
I see.
So a hand signal that works perfectly fine
Right.
on a clear day at ground level
Right.
might be completely useless in a blizzard 100 feet in the air.
Wow, that's a great point.
Yeah.
So it's starting to feel like this is a lot of responsibility for everyone involved, not just the signal person.
Absolutely. And that's why OSHA has specific regulations to deal with communication breakdowns and those inevitable safety concerns that pop up on any job site.
Yeah, because things happen.
Things happen.
So what happens if communication breaks down?
So that's covered in 1926.1419.
Okay.
And it's very straightforward.
Yeah.
If the operator can't clearly receive signals, they have to stop the operation immediately.
Okay.
And that operation can only resume after communication is reestablished.
I see.
And a clear signal has been given and understood. It's not enough to just hear a sound.
Right.
You need to grasp the message.
Gotcha. So you got to be sure they got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Like making sure you have a dial tone before making a phone call.
Yeah.
And it works both ways. OSHA 1926.1419 deals with those situations where the operator spots a safety issue that the signal person might not be aware of from their position on the ground.
Like, let's say the load is swinging too close to a power line.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Yes. In those situations, the operator has the authority and the responsibility to stop the operation immediately and discuss the problem with the signal person. They need to agree that the hazard has been addressed before they can even think about continuing the lift.
These are good built-in safety checks.
Yes, they are.
It's like a pause button.
It is like a pause button.
For the whole operation.
Yes, it's all about making sure everyone is literally and figuratively on the same page, working as a team to prevent accidents.
That's right.
But sometimes, even with the best of intentions, confusion can creep in.
Oh, yeah, especially on a busy job site.
Especially on a busy job site.
People talking and giving directions.
Yeah, and that kind of confusion can quickly lead to a dangerous situation.
Absolutely.
That's why OSHA is very clear in 1926.14110.
Okay.
Only one person is allowed to give signals to the crane operator at a time.
Gotcha.
Unless there's a specific exception, which we can talk about later.
Okay, one voice, one clear message.
One voice, one clear message.
I like it.
Yeah.
What about those, like, really scary moments, where someone sees something and you're like, oh my gosh, stop.
1926.1419. This gives anyone on the job site the authority to signal stop or emergency stop.
Oh, wow.
If they see a safety hazard.
Okay.
So not just the designated signal person.
Oh, wow. So anyone can yell stop.
Anyone can yell stop.
And the operator has to...
They do.
Okay.
OSHA 1926.1417Y explicitly states that operators must obey those top signals immediately.
Wow, that's great.
No matter who gives them.
Yeah, so it's everybody's responsibility.
It is everyone's responsibility.
For safety.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really great.
Okay, so now we've got the stop situation handled.
Yes.
When the signal person is giving those directions, are they doing it from their own point of view?
So that's a great question.
Or the operator's point of view?
And OSHA addresses that specifically in 1926.1419.
Okay.
All signals must be given from the operator's perspective. So it's like giving someone driving directions.
Right.
You wouldn't tell them to turn left from their perspective behind the wheel.
Right.
They need to turn right.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, it's about stepping into the operator's shoes.
I like that.
Mentally speaking.
Yeah.
And guiding them based on what they can see from their position.
Okay.
Now things get even more complicating when you have multiple cranes operating in the same area.
Oh, yeah, because then whose signals are for who?
Exactly. That's why OSHA has a whole section dedicated to communication with multiple cranes and signal people. It's 1926.1419.
Okay.
It outlines two primary methods for ensuring that everyone is clear about which crane is receiving which signal.
It's going to be good. I'm ready.
Yeah. The first method is simple.
Okay.
And straightforward.
Okay.
Before giving any signal, the signal person clearly identifies the crane.
Okay.
They're directed.
So like crane 2, raise the boom.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
The second method is a bit more open-ended.
Okay.
And allows for any other identification system that's equally effective.
So like color-coded flags.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's about finding a system that works for that particular job site.
Yeah.
And making sure everyone understands it.
So this has been really good. We've covered a lot.
Yes, we have.
About when you need a signal person, what kinds of signals, and even some of the problems that could arise and how to correct those.
Correct.
So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with more about signaling.
Okay, sounds good. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about that one signal person at a time rule.
Oh, right.
And I mentioned there were a few exceptions.
Yeah, you said we would talk about that.
Yes, so OSHA outlines those in 1926.1419H.
Okay.
And they're all about ensuring safety in those more complex scenarios.
Okay.
So, for example, think about concrete placement operations.
Oh, yeah.
Using those large buckets where you need like pinpoint accuracy.
Absolutely.
To pour the concrete exactly where it needs to go.
Yeah.
That's where 1926.14119 comes in.
Okay.
It allows for a second signal person positioned near the bucket's landing area.
Oh, okay.
So you have your primary signal person guiding the crane's overall movements.
Right.
And this additional signal person is solely focused on the precise placement of the bucket.
I see.
So it's all about having that extra set of eyes on a really critical task.
So they're just watching that bucket.
Yes.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What about the other exceptions?
Another exception is 1926.1419H2.
Okay.
And it's designed for nice situations where the crane's movement is being controlled by an automated system.
Oh, so like the cranes that are becoming more robotic.
Exactly. And in those cases, OSHA recognizes the need for a second person to potentially provide input to the operator, but only if the system is actually designed to receive and respond to those signals.
So it has to be set up for it.
Yes, it has to be set up for it.
Gotcha.
It's like having a co-pilot in the cockpit, but only if the plane is equipped for dual controls.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's 1926.1419, which addresses those large or complex lifts.
Okay.
Where a single signal person wouldn't be able to see all the critical areas
of
the operation.
Yeah, like if there's a lot of buildings in the way.
Yes, like imagine a lift where parts of the crane's path are obstructed by buildings.
Yeah.
Or the load needs to be maneuvered around a bunch of obstacles.
Right.
You need those strategically placed additional signal people.
So we can see everything.
Yes, to give the operator a complete picture
That's a really good
of what's happening and make sure nothing gets missed.
Wow. So multiple people are okay?
In those situations, yes.
As long as they're all on the same page.
Exactly. Even with multiple signal people, that core principle remains.
Right.
Only one person is giving directions to the operator at any given time.
Gotcha. So like a relay race.
Like a relay race, each signal person takes their turn to guide the operator through a specific stage of the lift.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've talked about all these regulations.
Yes.
But what about like training?
Training is crucial.
Yeah, you can't just read this stuff and be like, okay, I'm ready to go.
Exactly. You need proper training, and this is where Safety OneSource really excels.
Oh, okay.
They offer comprehensive training programs.
Oh, that's great.
That cover everything from understanding those standard hand signals to the nuances of non-standard signal.
Wow.
And adapting communication strategies to different site conditions.
So it goes way beyond just like memorizing the signals.
Way beyond memorizing signals. It's about understanding the why behind the signals.
Right.
The safety principles involved.
Okay.
The potential hazards that can arise. And why that clear communication is so important.
So like building that culture of safety.
Exactly. It's about building confidence and competence. In that high-stakes environment.
Yeah, so everyone feels like they can speak up.
Exactly, and that's not just for newcomers to the field.
Okay.
Even experienced operators and signal people can benefit from refresher courses.
That's a good point.
To stay sharp and up to date.
Yeah, sometimes we forget.
Yes, we do.
The basics.
Absolutely. Safety is a continuous journey.
Good point.
Not a destination.
So true.
Where you reach and then stop learning.
All right, well, this has been really good.
Yeah.
I feel like we've learned a lot, but we're not done yet.
Not done yet.
We're going to come back in just a minute with the final part.
Good.
And we are back for the final part of our deep dive, all about signaling for cranes.
Yeah, it's been a really good discussion.
It has.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Absolutely. We've talked about when OSHA says you need a signal person.
Right.
What types of signals are allowed. And even some of the challenges and how to overcome those.
Yeah. And some of the best practices.
Oh, yeah. We talked about training.
Yes. Training is key.
And common mistakes.
Yes.
So we also mentioned some resources like Safety OneSource,
yes,
NCCCO, and OSHA's website.
Right. Those are all fantastic resources.
Yeah. So what do you think is like the biggest takeaway?
I think the biggest takeaway is the importance of teamwork.
Yeah.
It's not just the operator or the signal person.
Everybody.
It's everyone on that job site.
Looking out for each other.
Being aware.
Communicating.
Communicating. That's key.
Yeah, and not being afraid to speak up.
Absolutely.
If you see something, say something.
Yeah.
That's so important for creating that culture of safety.
Absolutely. And understanding the why behind those rules.
Why are we doing this? Yeah, every signal, every pause.
Every safety check.
Yeah, they're all there to prevent those accidents.
To protect lives.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
We've talked about how technology is already changing the crane industry.
Right, with those cameras and the robotic thing.
Yeah, but what about the future?
Ooh.
How do you see crane signaling evolving in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
Wow, that is a really good question. What kind of new technologies could we see?
I mean, just imagine drones equipped with cameras giving operators a 360-degree view of the lifting area, eliminating blind spots.
That would be amazing.
And potential hazards.
That's a great idea.
Or maybe augmented reality systems.
Oh, wow.
That overlay information onto the operator's field of vision.
So they can see everything.
Yeah, providing real-time guidance and warnings.
Wow, the future's going to be amazing.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, but no matter what,
yes,
we still have to remember that human element.
Absolutely, the ability to think critically.
Right.
Communicate effectively.
Yes.
And prioritize safety.
Above all else.
Those are the skills that will never go out of style.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive.
It has.
Thank you so much for joining us, and a big thank you to Safety One Source.
Yes, thank you, Safety One Source.
For sponsoring this episode.
Absolutely.
And to all of you listening out there, stay safe.
Stay safe.